But we begin tonight with the bait and switch. Even as grocery prices are soaring, despite Trump's promises to lower them starting on day one of his second presidency, there is heightened fear and anxiety across the country as Elon Musk, the world's richest unelected South African oligarch, who, despite his own questionable immigration story, has used his twisted version of Twitter to weaponize anti-immigrant hysteria, anti-Semitism, and even race science, and bought his way into the Oval Office, where he quite literally stands over the elected president of the United States. And he's now taking a buzzsaw to American democracy and gutting services that millions of Americans rely on, burning our government to the ground and salting the ashes.
We do need to delete entire agencies as opposed to leave part of them behind. Because if you leave part of them behind, it's easy. It's kind of like if leaving a weed. If you don't remove the roots of the weed, then it's easy for the weed to grow back. But if you remove the roots of the weed, it doesn't stop weeds from ever growing back, but it makes it harder. So we have to really delete entire agencies, many of them.
Musk is moving fast to break it all. Today, all probationary staff were fired at the Federal Office of Personnel Management, basically America's HR department. Employees were given 1 hour to gather their things. OPM management, who survived the cuts, advised a number of other federal agencies to lay off the majority of their probationary employees, with some exceptions. Yesterday, a federal judge declined to pause Musk's federal government retirement program, which has already been taken by more than 75,000 federal workers, which we cannot confirm independently. It's destabilizing and frightening for so many Americans. Hours ago, Reuters reported that one of Musk's top officials, Gavin Kliger, arrived at the IRS to begin examining its operations and looking to potentially fire all of their probationary agents who helped claw back $1 billion from millionaire tax cheats. This news comes just 2 days after Musk signaled that DOGE has set its sights on Social Security. And Musk and his DOGE junior staffers continue to target government agencies, rifling through highly sensitive data and choking off social safety programs like Medicaid and food stamps, while simultaneously ending enforcement of anti-corruption officials who are targeting corporations and, of course, slopping up hundreds of millions of dollars in new contracts for his own companies, all at taxpayer expense. The response of the American people has not been paralysis. Instead, it's been resistance. It's a movement that's showing up in places from Connecticut to Kentucky and beyond in the form of protests and at town halls held by members of Congress across the country.
I get the honor to work with friends in the federal government who are scientists and NIH researchers, and those folks are terrified. And I said to them directly that we need them to fight.
Meanwhile, doing their part to dismantle everything about America that helps you, congressional Republicans are looking to pass legislation via the express process called reconciliation that would codify all of this and take it one step further. They're looking to make everything the Musk-Trump administration desires permanent, including that 2017 massive tax cut for America's wealthiest and for big corporations, and paying for it all with brutal cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, Head Start, and maybe even raising taxes on things ordinary people need, like college scholarships. Today, House Republicans unveiled their long-awaited budget resolution that would kickstart the process.
It's been a long time since we've taken a good hard look at how the federal government operates. And when you start looking under the hood, folks, it is pretty bad.
This bill will hurt people. If this plan goes through, Mr. Smucker, 26,000 people who receive coverage under the ACA in your district will see their premium go up by $2,400 per year. 98,000 people in your district on Medicaid are at risk of losing their coverage. 45,000 children and 7,000 seniors. Meanwhile, the top 1% get a tax cut of $314,000. That's what this bill does.
This is just the first agency. And we've got many more to come, like Social Security. We have many more to come, like the Department of Education. They're going to see, the American people are going to see where their tax dollars have been spent.
Joining me now is House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Leader Jeffries, thank you so much for being here. I think it's become very clear that the cut and slash and burn of these federal agencies, pushing out federal employees and zeroing out programs like USAID, et cetera, is the bait. And the switch is they're going to ram through this tax cut that's going to mainly benefit the top 1% income earners and big corporations. And they're going to make poor people, people on Medicaid, pay for it, people on food stamps. So my question to you, you have said in the past that you're looking to negotiate with your Republican colleagues. We want to find bipartisan common ground in funding the government to meet the needs of the American people. Does that mean a single Democrat, or you will allow any in your caucus to vote for this budget?
Well, it's great to be with you, Joy. We got two things going on at the same time. There's the funding of the federal government, and that is approaching a March 14th deadline. And traditionally, the appropriators, House Democrats, House Republicans, Senate Democrats, and Senate Republicans sit down and try to find common ground on an agreement that meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, their national security, and their economic well-being in the context of funding the federal government's operations. Separate and apart from that, and we'll see what happens as we approach March 14th in that regard. But separate and apart from that is the Republican effort to jam a budget down the throats of the American people, which is in connection with the hearing that is ongoing today. That is at the heart and soul of the Republican bait and switch. First, they promised the American people that they would drive down the high cost of living. They've lied. Second, their true goal is to enact massive tax cuts for their billionaire donors and wealthy corporations, which is at the heart of this budget proposal. And they want that to be paid for by working class Americans and everyday Americans by doing things like ending Medicaid as we know it. It's my expectation that not a single Democrat will support this reckless effort.
What's the point of passing a budget if Republicans have already conceded that they're not in charge, that Congress is not in charge of spending money, Elon Musk is? What's the point of passing a budget if it's really Elon Musk's decision whether that budget is adhered to?
Well, what the Republicans are doing is they're using the budget reconciliation process that requires, of course, a simple majority vote in the House. Right now, there are 218 Republicans and 215 Democrats. But more importantly, from the standpoint of what the extreme MAGA Republicans are trying to do, is that they are using the budget reconciliation process so they can evade the filibuster in the Senate. Effectively, they want to try to jam this budget down the throats of the American people in a partisan way. It's not something that Democrats, of course, would ever be expected to support. But the key point in the House, given the closeness of the margins, is that to stop any of this bad stuff from happening, it only takes 3 House Republicans to do the right thing on behalf of the people that they represent, to stand up for children and seniors and people with disabilities and veterans who will be hurt badly by this Republican budget proposal.
But we've seen, Leader Jeffries, that there aren't 3. There aren't any. If Donald Trump announced tomorrow that he was selling the United States to Vladimir Putin personally and that we will now be owned by the Kremlin, every single Republican would say, yes, sir, and vote for it. We already have seen their behavior. We've stopped, I think most of us have stopped expecting any different behavior from them. So the question to me is the leverage that Democrats have at this point is coming up in March, and Republicans have never been shy about using the debt limit to hold Democrats hostage. You all now are the ones in a position to do that, to essentially attempt to prevent the debt limit from being raised by withholding any support, any help, any assistance. Are you prepared to use that leverage and say, if you all want to shut the government down, do it by yourselves?
Well, the Republicans have the responsibility to fund the government. That's clear as it approaches the March 14th deadline. With respect to the debt ceiling, we already rejected a Republican effort in late December to try to give Donald Trump a $4 trillion blank check by suspending the debt ceiling for either 2 to 4 years so he could enact the GOP tax scam. Democrats are on record rejecting that. We did it in December. Now, with respect to when we will actually hit the debt ceiling, that is likely to come at some point as early as June 1st. It could come as late as August 1st. So that's an issue that we'll have to tackle in a couple of months.
Are you willing to help them raise the debt limit at all? Why not just say no?
We've already said no, Joy.
Okay. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. There is some reporting, Axios reported, that the leadership, including yourself, have taken some annoyance at groups like Indivisible and other activist groups who have organized protests that have also resulted in a lot of phone calls into Democratic Party offices. Why would that annoy Democratic leadership? It does feel like the energy that you're seeing at the town halls for Democratic and when Republicans do bother to talk to their constituents is real and it's genuine. Why would that annoy leadership?
It doesn't annoy leadership. I think that we've been very clear. In fact, we work regularly with advocacy groups to make sure that we are in lockstep as it relates to pushing back against the extremism that's being unleashed against the American people. That was, as I understand it, a report that was filled with anonymous sources. Not a single House Democratic leader, myself included, is on record making that observation, because nothing could be further from the truth. At the end of the day, our view is that it's an all-hands-on-deck effort. We need everybody. Democratic members of the House, Democratic members of the Senate, Democratic governors, Democratic elected officials, advocacy groups, everyday Americans, Democratic attorney generals like Tish James, who's doing her thing. It's an all-hands-on-deck effort in the Congress, in the courts, and in the community.